Hi guys, I'm Bobsi, and in this video we're going to continue off from where we left off last time. Essentially, we finished setting up the enemy spawning, and this time we're going to get into all the leveling and the state stuff. And so yeah, please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see of videos, and I just hope that you enjoy. So now with this, there's only really, I think, 3 things we're missing now. We're missing the game states, essentially like the leveling up or you lost the game. We're missing the player states, like you can get downed or you can be up and alive. And well, we're missing the leveling and XP and stuff itself. I think that's mostly all that's really left for us to do. So I think let's just get right into that. So guys, first of all, let's maybe just set up the player states. The way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be setting it up with the PurrNet auto network state machine. This should essentially make it super easy for you to, well, automatically network sort of game states, player states, whatever essentially you want to network. And I think all I have to do is just add the component of the state machine. I'm going to make it owner auth, meaning that the owner of the player can be the one controlling it. And now let's actually set up the state. So let's go into the player. Let's make a states folder here. And I'm going to make, I guess, just 2 states. I'm going to make a player state underscore, I guess, normal, we can call it, or alive, or whatever we want to call it. And I also want to make a separate one, which is going to be the down state, or dead, or whatever you want to call it. So let's do that. Let's go in here, and I'm going to make a player state underscore down. And let's add these to the player. So essentially, we're just going to drag and drop these in here. So that's the alive state, that's the down state, and let's also just add them to the state machine immediately. So I'm going to add new, oh, of course we haven't made them state nodes yet. So let me just close all our existing stuff. We can always open it again. And I'm going to make this into a state node. And I'm also going to do the player state underscore down state, make that into a state node as well. Okay, and here on the player then, we can drag and drop this on here, we can drag and drop this on here, and that should be good to go. Okay, super cool. So now we have these states set up in here, and the first state will be the one that the player will start in, which is their live state, which makes total sense. I think this is also where we could actually just in their live state, when we enter this state, so let's do that. So we're gonna override the enter. And first of all, if you are the host, it'll enter as both as server true and as server false, which means it's going to be running twice. We don't want that, so let's just start by saying if we're running this as server, we just return. And then essentially we're just going to do if we are the owner, if it's owner, serialized field, private, and let's get the player health. This will be the player health. And here we will essentially do the set health to the player health.max health. There we go. So that essentially means whenever we enter the alive state, we will set the health to our max health. I think that makes sense. That means essentially every time we are alive, the health will be set. So I think that makes sense. Now in the down state, let's hop in here. And this state is going to be handling a hell of a lot more actually. Another thing really quickly I also want is I also just want to serialize a game object for our graphics object. This graphics object is going to be whichever graphics object we use while the player is up. This is because I don't want to deal with animations. If you want to deal with like a down animation and whatever, like you want it to be animation states, then you want to use your animator here. But I'm just going to do graphics, which essentially means when we enter this state, I essentially want this to be set active to true, which means I want our alive graphics to be active by default. And I want the same thing in the down here. And so when we enter here, when we enter this, and actually in alive, let's just exit this as well. So we exit, and that means when we exit, I would want the graphics to be set active to false. So I don't want the alive graphics to be visual when we're not in the state. And I want to do the same thing in the down state. So let me also just exit here, and let me just do graphics.set active to true, and graphics.set active to false in here. Okay, cool. And next thing really is, so now we're setting the graphics whenever we're entering the state, and actually we can just test that really quickly. So let me just make a copy of my graphics here. So let me make a copy of this. So this will be alive graphics, and this will be dead graphics, or whatever you want to call them. And I'm essentially just gonna, I guess, lay him down, something like that, put him here. And I guess have his, let's move his legs and arms. Let's do left leg, something like that. And right leg, something like that. That works. And then his arms, He's moving a little mad here, I'm aware, but you know, it's fine. It's just a game. There we go. Could do something like that. Oh, actually, I like the idea better of having him like split out like this. I think that's more fun. Like that, and actually let me move the legs back up. And maybe move them out a little bit. That's kind of fun, I like that. Like this, so he'll be kind of laying flat, face down on the ground. I think that's kind of fun. These are the dead graphics. And let's just disable them by default. And let's feed them to the graphics on the down state. And let's feed the alive graphics to this here. And let's also feed the player health in here. Okay, cool. So we can actually very easily test this because the Unity, whoops, I can't be in the prefab meanwhile, just a little bug. The state machine here actually allows me to easily change the states. So for example, what I can do here is when I hit next, so you can see now he's laying down. And when I hit next again, he's now standing up. This is essentially because we're moving through the state. So I think that works really well. As you can see, I can obviously still move around. I'm still shooting, everything like that while in this state. And we'll get to that, well, I guess just now. So essentially we want to disable some components when we enter the down state and we want to enable them again when we leave. So I want to do a serialized field private, and I want to do a list of mono behaviors because mono behaviors are the ones you can enable and disable, or at least in our case it is. So I'm just going to have this be called components. And essentially, let's make a private void toggle components and bool whether they should be enabled or not. And first of all, let's just say if we are not the owner, we return, which means I have to do that. And here we essentially want to loop through all of them. So let's loop through each component. This is a component. And let's set the component.enabled equals to enabled that we have in here. Cool. So now when we exit, we can just call this with true because we want to enable them again. And when we enter, we call this with false. So now let's just go and test this once again. Very easy to quickly test. So going in here, let me find the player. As you can see now, we can walk around, we can shoot. Oh, of course, I haven't given any components yet. Silly me. Essentially, what we want is, I guess, it's the attack handler. So if I go down here to the components, I'll feed it the attack handler and the movement. And feed it in there. Boom, there we go. So now we can play. Disregard that. And let me go down to state machine and let me hit next. So now we're laying down. We shouldn't be shooting anymore, and I can't move around even when I try to move around. And when I go back into my live state, once again, we shoot and I can now move again. So that works really well. Now we're successfully essentially downing our player. And now let's also just give it the ability to, well, get back up. Feel a bit bad for him here. A good way to do this is we can use the state update. This is essentially an update method that only runs while we're in the state. So it's just a good way to check it for you. So first things first, let's just say if we're not the owner or we're running as server, we just return. The reason for as server again is the state update will run once for server, once not for server. So in our case, we only want it running once for the client. Just in case we're host, right? So we're still, if we are host and we are the owner, we'll still get past this because as server will be false once and true once. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so first of all, I guess let's make a bool for whether we're being revived or not. It's just good to keep track of. And then we can essentially for each through of the players, so we have the all players, and we can just for each through the values, which are the player health themselves. So this will be a player. And of course, so essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to check out any player close enough to us to revive us. And first of all, of course, we want to make sure that it's not the same player as we are right now. So if we are the owner of this player, we just continue because we're checking ourselves and we don't want to do that. Then we can check if the distance is fitting. So we can do if vector3.distance from the player transform position to our transform position is, let's say, something like greater than some kind of revived distance. I guess we can set that up actually. So let me do that. Let's do serialized field, private float, revive distance, and let's just set that to 2. So if this is greater than revive distance, we continue. And if it's not, we'll essentially want to count up on our revive progress, which means we are being revived equals to true. Let's also count up on some progress. So let's do a private float revive progress. And let's also just make a float for revive time. Let's say that takes 3 seconds, for example. So now essentially we can have our revive progress be plus equal to time.delta time. And then what we can essentially do is we can say if we are not being revived, that means that we just need to reset the revive progress because there's no one near us, so we reset it. And if the revive progress is greater than or equals to the time that it takes to revive, the revive time, then we essentially want to revive. So let's do something like Let's set, well, I guess we just set the state really. So we do state machine.set state. We could do .next here or .previous for that sake, but I really like just the safety of setting the state directly. So we can just serialize the state node, and we can just call this like the underscore live state. And then we just set the state to the alive state. And that should really be it. So now we should be able to revive when we go close to each other. So let's go and test this out. So now to ensure that we can also die, let's just go on the zombie and give it max health of 999. Just because I don't want to deal with killing them right now as we're testing. So we can also look at our local player. We can look at our... actually, sorry, we don't have a way of going into the state right now. We of course still need to do that. So we need the player health as well. And in here, of course, we need... actually, even better, I feel like our live state should take charge on this. So what I think we should do is I think we should have a callback here. So we'll make a public action and on health change. And we can also make a public action on player died, something like that. Because now when the player then dies, we can invoke this on player die, and this will just be local. So I actually want to quickly rename it to local, just to make it very clear that this is a local call. And on health change, I guess we can just always call in here. We just do invoke with the new health, just so we easily have some callbacks from the outside, because now the alive state can take care of this, because we already have the player health here. So actually when we enter the state, and let's say that we are the owner, we want to keep an eye on when the player dies. So let's do an on player dead, something like that. And when we exit again, we of course just want to unsubscribe from it again. Like that. And when the player dies, let's just do machine.next in this case. So because the dead state is going to be the next state from us. So this should be completely valid. Okay, cool. So let's go and just test this now. So now I think we should be able to die. So let's start up here. The zombie should have a lot of health. So let's see where there is a zombie. Did I really forget? Hold on. My God, I forgot to add the network transform onto the zombies. That is wild. Impressive. Okay, let's start it up again. I just noticed the client couldn't see the zombies. Now I can see them. Okay, so let's have them kill him. So I guess we can see that it's this player right here. We should be able to see his health value. Yeah, so he's 0. You can see he's laying down now, so he's dead. You can see the zombies are still going for him. Well, let's see if we go close to him here for a few seconds. He should technically get up again, I think. Oh, but I guess... Hold on. Two things right here. First of all, we're going into the state. Going into down state, it should check. Well, I mean, it should check. So I guess... what are we doing here? Okay, actually, I guess let's just test again really quickly. Let's just have him die, and let's just disable the enemy spawner now. Because then no more should be spawning. So that goes. Now he's dead. Now we should be able to just destroy these zombies, essentially like that, locally. And now I should be able to go over to him, and he should revive. But he does not. What have I missed? Oh, we haven't fed the alive state. That is beautiful. I keep forgetting to do stuff. Gotta feed it the alive state in here. There we go. Otherwise, of course, it can't go to the state. So here we go. Now let's test. I'm gonna go to the game and just stop that again. And I'm gonna be killing the zombies here. Like that. So now we should be able to go close to him while he's dead, and he should come back to life. There we go. And now he's back to life. You can see he's shooting again. He can move around again. Cool. So this works. I just keep forgetting to populate stuff. So going back into it, now our player can die and he can come back to life. I feel like this plays well into let's make the zombies not chase dead players. So in the enemy movement, I feel like we should be able to, in the player health that we have here, should be able to check whether the player is down or not. So let's do a public bool is downed, And I feel like that should have to do, well, I guess we can just check if the current health value is less than or equal to 0. This is probably actually a very valid way of going about it. So let's do that. And then in here where we're checking the closest distance, we also want to check that they are not down. And player.value.is down. There we go. So as long as he is not down and he is closer, then we set him as the target. So this should technically just work now. So let's have a look just to confirm that this works as intended. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to hit play over here. And now let's see, this guy should die and we should see the zombies turn around. There we go. And there we go. Now they start going for me. Awesome. So that works. And now they're no longer chasing a down player. Very cool. Let's see if I can get him up here. Now I'm just intrigued. I hide behind him. Yes. He's gonna die. He's alive. Okay. Well, enough goofing around for me. That's enough fun for this week. That's okay. I don't know where that came from. Let's move into the actual game states of the game. So for the game states, we know that we want, I guess, a playing state, we want a level up state, and we want, I guess, a lost state when all players are dead. So let's move into that, and let's actually just make a new game state manager. I feel like it's just cleaner having them split up. And let's add the state machine to this as well. So there we go. This is not going to be owner auth. It's going to be just auth by the server. Wouldn't really matter because the server would take over since it doesn't have an owner anyway. But now let's go into managers and let's just make the states. So let's make a game state underscore, I guess we just call it running, for example. And this will be a state node like so. And let's also make a game state for level up, and let's make a game state for lost. Okay, great. Now we have these states. Now the lost state I'm not going to do a whole lot with yet. I feel like you can figure out what you want to do there. If you want to restart the game, if you want to go back to the menu, this is up to you. So I'm just going to log it out and say you lost. And let's just do it again. If as server, which all right, cool. So now we're just logging out your lost when we enter the lost game state. And that's really all I'm going to do with that. The level up game state we'll get to in a bit. And the running game state, I guess the game just needs to run. So there's not really much advance to that. So I feel like let's maybe start out with actually having us lose, just since we already have the player health and everything. So let's first of all set up this. So I'm going to hop in running, level up, and lost. I'm going to add them to here in the correct order. So running first, level up, and then lost is the last one. I guess the order of these two don't matter much, but we want the first one is running because that's where our game is starting essentially. Okay, cool. So now we have this. Let's try and figure out how we are going to handle losing. And I feel like the lost game state or the running game state actually could just be responsible for this. So let's serialize field, private state node, and let's just do like the, I guess, lost state here. All right. And then next thing is, I guess we can either just check on tick like our player's dead, or even better, we can have a callback. So let's go into the player health and let's just make a public static action, which is going to have the player ID on player died. Right, so whenever a player dies, we essentially want to announce it. Now, right now, this is local. But what we can technically just do is, instead of having it local, actually, we just have this here. So if is not the owner, we return. So that way, anything after local, and this can be global for everybody. So everybody will now know when somebody has died. And this will be the owner.value. And of course, we want to check if owner.hasValue as always. All right, cool. If the owner has a value, we essentially just tell everybody that he has died. All right, great. This now means we can have the game state of running. Let's do it in the enter. Can start listening to this. So let's do if it's not as server, we return because we want the server to keep track of this. And let's do player health dot on player died plus equals to on player died, like that. And let's also just in exit make sure to unsubscribe properly, like so. Now we can make the on player died method, which is, this is going to be the player that has died. Okay, cool. So now we can keep track of, yeah, actually, I guess we don't even really need to know the player that died. I guess what we can just do is we can just check if all players are dead. So we can go through the player health.allPlayers. And let's just do .value. And this is a player. Oh, then this is a player ID, I guess. Okay, and then we can say if player.is downed, and actually if player is not downed, we just return, because we don't want anything to happen. That means not everybody is dead, so let's not do anything. And if we get here, that means everybody is dead, which means we can now go to the machine.setState to the lost state. And that should really be it. Actually, every time a player dies, we just check are all players dead, and if they are, then we just set the state to the lost state. So let's just go and confirm that this works now. So I'm gonna go ahead and play there. I'm gonna hit play here. Let's just wait for a bunch of zombies to spawn. I guess let me make the spawn interval even smaller, just so we will die quick. So let's see, this guy should be dead in a second. So he's dead, and they're gonna arm dead, and it says you are dead. And let's see, so it doesn't look like it entered the... No, it's still in running, okay. Oh, and I did it again. I gotta feed this in here. There we go. Cool. Cool. Let's go again. And let's just try once more. We just set the spawn interval down again. There we go. Just spawned a lot of zombies. So he's dead. He's dead. And there we go. Now it says you lost, and it does so on both editors. Okay, awesome. So this works. We can now lose the game. And then now the last thing we really need is just leveling up. Now, one thing I actually just want to disclaim really quickly, in the little demo in the beginning, I showed that we had, UI with the XP bar, we had the health bar, stuff like that. I'm not going to show you how to do that. And the reason is it's just UI. It's very, very simple to do. You've already seen now how, for example, with the player health, here, we have the on health changed event. And that's really all you want to do. You can see we have essentially an event we already call now when the health changes. We set it to the new health. You could just have the UI listen to this event and set it depending on that. And that's it. It's really that simple. It's really easy. I'm not gonna go through setting this up for you. Okay. So cool. Now this works. And again, the last thing we really need now is just leveling. So let's make a level manager. So in the level manager, let's start by just making this a network behavior again, as always, or network identity. Again, they're completely interchangeable. It's up to you. Actually, it's funny. If you look at the network behavior and you enter it, you'll see it is just a network identity. That is all. It is. It's literally just network identity. So they are one and the same. And there's no real overhead of this. So you can call them whatever you want. Okay, so here now we have our level manager. And there's a few things we want our level manager to do. So first of all, let's just, I would strongly argue, set it up as an equation for like how much XP it takes to level. I'm just gonna make, I guess let's make a very simple equation really. So let's make a private int underscore XP to level, and let's just set that to 5, for example. And then I'm just going to multiply this by the level that you are. Obviously, extremely simple equation, but let's do that really quickly. So let's make a sync var for int, that is our XP, and let's make a private sync var for int, that is our level. And now what we can just easily do as well is we can make a private int XP to next level. Yeah, exactly like what it wants to do here, actually. So now we have the XP to next level, which just multiplies it. Right, that is nice and easy. And also, if you want to be able to easily access it from somewhere, we can make a public static action. That can be, for example, an action int. That can be on XP changed, and we can make a similar one for on level changed as well. And then we can invoke these, so you can have, UI or whatever, listen to these easily and update the UI and whatnot. So that should be really easy. Okay, cool. So first of all, let's register to the change events. So let's do xp.onChanged, on XP changed, and whoops, and let's do the same thing for underscore level dot on changed plus equals to on level changed. Do something like this, and let's make the methods, and let's also just make the on destroy to unsubscribe properly. So like that, and we of course have to do minus and minus to unsubscribe. There we go. And now whenever XP changes, so this is new XP. Oh, new XP, and this is the new level. Okay, and what we can do is we can do on XP changed, question mark, invoke new XP, and we do the same thing down here with new level. So new level, on level changed. Cool. Okay, so now we're essentially invoking these. This is all pretty simple, fairly clean. And we can easily just handle it from here. This is where, again, you would handle UI, whatever you want to do. I would do it like that. Okay, cool. So let's make a public void, which is going to be add XP. We want some amount to change, so some amount to add. And we also just want to say if we're not the server, we just return, because only the server should add XP. And what we can do is xp.value plus equals to amount. And then we can also just check for level. So we can make a method for that, where we can easily just check, are we supposed to level up or not? And essentially here we just do if underscore xp.value is greater than or equals to the xp to level. XP to next level, which is the one we want to use. And I guess essentially let's make it if it is smaller than we return. Which means now we should be leveling, so we can do underscore xp.value equals to, minus equals to xp to next level. Because we want to take away the XP again, but in regards to that, we add a level. So we take level plus plus. And there we go. Now we should be able to level. All that's really going to matter now is that we can add XP. And one of the ways we can do that is by just calling it on the level manager. However, we don't have a way of getting the level manager from the zombies or the enemies right now. And a good way of doing that is registering it in the instant handler. So we're going to do instant handler that register instance to this. And on destroy, I'm also going to do instant handler.unregister instance of the type of level manager. So there we go. So this now means, remember back in the enemy health, in the very beginning, I set up an XP for a kill here. Well, essentially, this is exactly where we're going to do it, right? So when they die, we're going to do if instance handler.tryGetInstance out level manager, and we're going to name it level manager. Then we can say level manager.add XP, and that's going to be the XP for kill. And that's it. Now we're essentially adding an XP. And also in the level manager here, we can also just in the on level change, just quickly debug out, saying level changed to new level. And we can also do debug.log just so you can see it. XP changed to new XP. So let's go and test this, and let's also just make sure we can actually kill the zombies again. So going back into prefabs, into zombie, just give it 10 health again, and let's try and run it. And now let's have a look. So you see when a zombie dies, nothing happens. That's very cool because I forgot to add damn level manager. How do I keep doing this? Level manager, there we go. Okay, let's try again. Spawn interval 1. I don't know how I keep forgetting to actually add the stuff I make. So you see now when we hit him, XP changed to 1. When we're going to kill hopefully this guy in a second or someone else. Going to hit something eventually. Wow, we're really threading the needle. There we go. XP 2, XP 3. Come on. Come on. Hit something. There we go. There we go. So XP, and as you can see, XP changed back to 0. Level changed to 1. And then XP went up to 1 again because we got another kill. And so yeah, you can see everything is working quite cleanly here. So now we hit 10. Now we got level 2. And you can see, yeah, and it can really just keep going. Now we can just level forever. So yeah, this is working quite nicely. So let's remove these again. Now we've confirmed that they work. And last thing is really just the level state, which is not super simple. There's some UI stuff and some things we need to set up, but we're mostly already there. And we almost have a full gameplay loop already. So I guess let's hop into our game state that's called level up. But actually, before I do that, let me just go and take the UI from the other scene. And again, the reason is just I don't want to set it up again. I'm just going to go back into the tutorial scene, and I'm actually just going to remove this overlay, and it's just the level panel I care about. Let me go into the 2D view just so I can show you what the level panel is. It's really just this. There's not much to it. All I have right now is I have some text, which is just the title. I can just rename that for title. We have a layout group, which is essentially holding some kind of entries. And then I've actually already made the entries, which again, I can just make them here again so you can see. Go into UI, make a panel. This is a level entry of some kind. We set the width, we set some height, and let me set them up so there's something like that. As you can see, the layout group here has a vertical layout group. So when I make 3 of these, you can see they will lay out themselves. Let me make it a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to make this as sort of a similar but distinct color. Something like that. I think it works quite well. Oh, and actually, instead of making them a panel, I'm silly. I want to make them a button. I guess we can just do that afterwards. So I want them to be a button. And the reason for this is because, well, we need to be able to click them to select the upgrade, right? So let me go to UI here. Let me add a new image. And yeah, this can just be the image. We can add that over here to the left. Scale that up and yeah, position how we want it. Cool, so now we have that image. Let us also make Oh, right, because there's the overlay. I completely forgot saying also I have this waiting for others overlay right here, which is what's kind of layered on top of everything. That's just, I want to enable it essentially, well, yeah, when we have voted, but we're waiting for others to vote, essentially. Or not vote, but choose an upgrade. Okay, either way, back to this. So I can actually just disable this for now. Back to the level entry. I want to go to UI, Text Mesh Pro. I want to set up the attack name. Just set that up here, something like this. Should be good. And let's put that in the bottom, but in the left. And this is the attack name. We can make that bold. And then we can duplicate this, put it down here. Expand it. And actually, let's just expand both of them all the way to the right. And this is the description, which is going to start from the top. And that's not going to be bold, and there's going to be smaller letters, not 20, that was very small. Something like 25. I feel like this can maybe be 40 or something. It's probably good. Yeah, and then this is just lorem ipsum velocidamet. Okay, that's the description, right? Let's make it 24, something like that. Yeah, that looks good. Cool, so now we have these, and this is going to be the description. Let's now make what's it called? A thing for the level entry here, a script. I'm just going to make a miscellaneous folder, I guess. And this is going to be the level, I'm just going to call it level entry. Okay, and let's just serialize the things that we need. So let's serialize for the image, which will be in UnityEngine.ui namespace. This will be the icon. Let us serialize field for the private tmp_texts, which will be the name text. And we will also have the description text. All right, cool. And let's also just store what it is that it actually has. So let's store the attack data, which will be the attack itself. Let's store the game state of level up. And let's now actually initialize it. So public void, I'm just going to call it init. And in here, we're going to get the attack data, which is going to be the attack. And we're going to get the game state, I'm just going to level up in here. Because the game state is what's going to be initializing it anyway, so we might as well get it through here. Let's just do level up equals to level up. And let's do underscore attack equals to attack. All right, cool. Now another thing is we of course need to know the actual level of the attack that we're trying to initialize here. And if you remember, that is held on the attack handler. So if we go back and find the attack handler here, but the thing is we don't really have a good way of getting our attack handler, but this is actually where the instant handler once again comes in really handy. Because we can just, if we are the owner, so in this case if we're not the owner, we return. So if we are the owner, we can just register it in the instant handler as well. Because there's only ever going to be one attack handler, right? We know that because it's just going to be ours. So we're going to register this, and then on despawn, of course, you'd want to unregister it again. So if is owner, we just do instance handler.unregister instance of the attack handler. So now it's only our attack handler that's registered in here. So we can once again avoid using the singleton pattern here. And now going back into the level entry, this now means we can actually get it in here. So we can say if we do not get the instant handler out attack handler, then we return something went wrong. You can log an error or whatever you want here. I'm just going to take the laser out. And here we can also once again then set the icon.sprite equals to the attack.icon. We can set the name text.text equals to the attack.attack name. And we can set now the description equals to the data.get, oh, sorry, it's not data, it's attack.get level description. And this is where we need the attack handler.get level of the attack.attack ID. And of course we need to set the text.text here, like that. So there goes. Now we're essentially initializing the whole thing. And what we now also want is we want a method for when we actually click on it. So when we pick the upgrade itself. And here, once again, let us just get the attack handler. And when we then pick it, we'll do attack handler.add attack. And this is now the attack that we stored. And then we'll also just tell the level up state that we are ready. So set ready, right? Cool. So let's go and just create this set ready method really quickly in the level up state node, which we don't really have anything in yet. But let's just finish setting up the entry very quickly because we're very close to that. So let's go here to the level entry. I'm going to drag and drop that in here. And we can drag and drop the image in, we can drag and drop the attack name and the description. And then we can just make a prefab out of this. So I'm just going to drag and drop the level entry prefab, and that's basically it. There goes. Now we save that. And that's basically calling it a day on everything set up with the UI here. So that should all be functional. Oh, actually, one last thing that we need is, of course, when we click the button, we want the level entry script to call the pick upgrade. There we go. That's all we should need. All right, awesome. Cool, so now being back into our level up state here. First of all, we want the reference back so we can be able to set it back up into our state node of the playing state. What do we call it? Running state, I think we did. Something like that. And also, it's a good idea that we have a list somewhere to all attacks. You could make this a scriptable to make it even cleaner. I'm just going to put it in here. So this is going to be essentially all attacks that we have, like so. And then let me also just make a header here for all the UI handling that we need to do, just so we can sort of separate that cleanly. And let's first of all get the private game object of the actual level screen itself. Let us also get one of the waiting screen. And let's also get a serialized field private transform for the holder. So that can be the upgrade holder, we call it. And then we of course need the entry itself. All right, cool. And let's also just keep track of which players have already said that they are ready. So let's do player ID, and this is going to be ready players, like so. Okay, cool. So now in the set ready, we can also have a server RPC, set ready RPC, which can get the RPC info. We're just going to call info and set it to default. This is essentially how you know who sent the RPC. We can have that in the info here. For good measure, you can also just do the require ownership and set it to false. With the unsafe rules, it shouldn't be a problem, but it's good to be on the safe side. So first of all, we can just say if readyplayers.contains the info.sender, then we just want to return, meaning they're already ready. There's no point in setting them for ready. And then we essentially just add them to be ready. And then we can check if the underscore readyplayers.count is essentially smaller than all the player health count, we just return. Or otherwise, we do machine.setState and we essentially set it back to our running state. So there we go. Now we have the ready up logic. This of course needs to be called in here. And when we do this, we also want to set the waiting screen dot set active to true. And for good measure, let's also just in awake set this active to false, both this and actually the whole level screen. And that gets me to the next point. When we enter this state and when we exit this state, we also want to handle these. So when we leave the state, we want to set them to false. When we enter the state, we want to set them to true. Well, not this one, but the waiting screen. But the level screen, I mean, sorry. So I hope this makes sense. Another thing we also want to do is the ready players needs to be cleared at some point, and we can just clear them when we essentially enter the state. And that should be plenty. Another thing we can also do is we can actually pause the whole game time. So we can do time.timescale equals to 0. So this should be fine. And then when we exit, we can set the timescale back to 1. And just to make sure things once again don't run twice, let's just do if as server we return, and let's do the same thing in the exit. So like that. Okay, cool. And the very last thing that we need now is just to set up which upgrades that we're going to show. And this of course is a little bit of code, but it shouldn't be too bad. So essentially when we enter the state, let's call something that we just call setup level options, for example. And let's make that method. And first of all, let me just move that method down below the exit. I just like having it clean. And first of all, let's start by just clearing everything that might already be in the upgrades holder. So let's do the upgrade holder and let's loop through every transform that's in there. We're going to call it child. And we're essentially going to be destroying child.gameObject. I didn't want those. There we go. Now, first of all, let's figure out how do we get the available attacks, which attacks are available to us, right? Let's do var available attacks. And let's make a new, and then let's actually make a new method. It's going to call get available attacks, just so we split it up a little bit. So this should essentially return to us, I guess let's just make it very clear here. So this would be a list of attack data. And so we essentially want a method here that returns a list of attack data. So let's start by figuring this out. First of all, we want to know which attacks are available and what defines available. The very first thing that I think we should do is we should check if the instance handler try get instance out attack handler. And essentially, if we do not get it, we once again need to just return. In this case, we return null. The reason is we of course need to check what level are these attacks and are they max level? You know, have we already unlocked everything we can? Because then there's no point. So let's start by making a new list. So a new list of attack data, available attacks, and that's just a new list. And then we can essentially for each through all of our attacks that we have. This is going to be an attack that we for each through. And we're going to say if the attack handler dot get level of the attack dot attack ID, if that is smaller than the attack dot, I guess we need a way to get the max level in the attack. So let me just do that very quickly. So what we can essentially just do is we can do public int max level, and that could just be equals to the, I guess in our case here, it's fine to just do level descriptions.count because we need a description for each anyway. And then -1, yeah, that makes sense. And then dot max level. And so that means that if the level is less than the max level that it's allowed to be, that's great, because that means now then we can add it to the available attacks. So we do available attacks dot add, and we add the attack. And then in the end, we essentially just return the available attacks. There we go. So now we've gotten all the available ones, all the ones that are at least. And this is also where you could have any like unlocking logic. If you wanted to only unlock some later or whatever, you could do that here very easily. Essentially, this whole method is just a filter of what attacks can you get and which ones can you not. Cool. So now up here we have the available attacks, and just for safety, let's start by checking that the available attacks is not or is null, or if the available attacks.count is less than or equal to 0. Now we just want to return, and we can just log out an error, no available attacks. This is essentially where you would catch the case of no attacks, and you'd probably want to catch it some clean way. I've seen other games like Vampire Survivors, they allow you to sort of choose coins or health instead when you don't have any attacks to choose, and this is exactly where you could do that. Cool. So now let's also get some random attacks. So let's do a var random attacks equals to new list of attack data. And here we're essentially just going to while all the random attacks dot count is less than 3, and the available attacks dot count is greater than 0. So this means as long as there are available attacks, we want to try and get a new random attack and add it to the attacks list, or as long as the random attacks list isn't full. Of course, you can have more than 3 here. This is just me hard coding again. You absolutely don't have to do that. Now we can just choose a random index first. So we can just do a random index. We do random.range between 0 and available attacks.count. And then we just do random attacks.add the available attacks at the random index. And then of course we also need to make sure to remove it from the available attacks. So we have available attacks.remove at, and we remove the random index. And that's pretty much it. Now we just have to set them up. So now we just for each through these random attacks that we now have. And this is once again an attack. And all we have to do is we set up the entry. So we instantiate the entry prefab, and we instantiate under the, what was called the holder, something holder, upgrade holder. There we go. And then we're going to do entry.init, and we're essentially going to feed it the attack, and we're going to feed it the state. And that should mostly be it. I think now we should mostly be working. So let's go and make sure we set everything up. So now going back to the game state manager, we should have a lot more in the game state here. So we're going to feed it the running state. Also going to give it our fireball attack. And I'm also going to give it the level screen, the waiting screen, the upgrade holder, which was the layout group, and the entry prefab itself. There we go. So now let's go and check if this works. So let's go and hit play. Oh, and of course, god damn it, I keep doing this. we are not actually ever changing the state. So in the level manager, we do have the static on level changed, and actually let's have the running state listen to this. So let's do level manager dot on level change plus equal to on level change. And in the exit, of course, let's once again not listen to this. And then this is the new level. Not that that really matters, but this is essentially where we should then move on to the other state. So let's do serialized field, private state node, and it should be the level state. And we'll do machine.set state to the level state. All right, cool. There we go. Now we should actually enter the state. I keep forgetting these super basic things, so my apologies for that. So once this is loaded, we should see the level state show up here. I can drag and drop that in there. Save the scene, of course. And let's try and play again. So here we go. Let's see. Should be killing some zombies anytime. So that should be at least 1, 2, 3, 4 dead, and 5. There we go. And now as you can see, they both have the level screen here. If I click, which I seemingly cannot do, which I think is because I don't have an event system in the scene. This is a very classic pitfall, and I think a lot of people fall in this one. You need an event system. There we go. Scene to be able to click on UI. Right, here we go. Now finally with an event system in the scene, hopefully it now works. Let's try and kill some zombies. It's 1 dead, 2 dead, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, so now I have it here, and I should be able to click it. Now you can see I've clicked and chosen the fireball. Waiting for other players. I'm going to click here as well. And there we go. That seemed to work. Yeah, so now you can see we're only shooting 2 balls at a time now, because that's what the second upgrade essentially is set to. And yeah, that seems to all be working pretty well. I think I noticed the descriptions might be one off here. So let's just very quickly fix that. I think that must be on the level entry. I'm pretty sure it's because we're getting the level description for that level, but we technically want it to be... well, I guess this is where it's a little bit tricky, because if we don't have it and when we add it, it's level 1. I guess get level, if we do not have it, let's actually return -1. And then in the entry, we just do +1 here. I think that should technically work. Yeah, because now new ones that we don't have already should then show the first one, and everyone else should show the second one. All right, cool. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. It was a long video. If you do like the content, please do remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And other than that, I just hope that you have a wonderful day.